Alors, on va commencer avec notre spécial cybercentre. So we're going to start with our Cyber Blood special. And we will be starting with the launch of the Blood Sisters Project. Et on va commencer avec le lancement du projet Blood. Can we start?
Oh, okay.
Yes, okay.
Oh, no.
So, last but...
No.
So last but certainly not least, all the way from down there in Washington, D.C., we have the pleasure of welcoming Laura McGow, who's a curator, critic, and media artist, and who is currently the co-director of Nomads, a visual arts presenting organization located in Washington. And Laura has also curated video and media art, and also does her own work. And she'll be taking us on a tour entitled Electronic Blood and Guts in Hyperspace. La dernière et non la moindre, directement de Washington, D.C., on a le plaisir de vous présenter ce soir Laura McGow, qui est artiste médiatique, conservatrice et critique, et qui est en ce moment co-directeur d'une organisation qui s'appelle Nomads, qui est une organisation de diffusion d'art visuel qui est située à Washington. Alors, sans plus tarder, Laura McGow.
First of all, I do want to apologize. I am sober. I don't know how they all and I just want to say, I mean, this is sort of a lecture in a way, but we can be loose about it. If I'm moving out of the site and you want to stay there, just let me know. I'll take questions at the end, but if you're dying to ask something or know something, let's just work it that way. Let's be kind of loose about it. Also, if you can't hear me, just shout out. Anyhow, I will be your tour guide tonight through this evening's fleshy, wet, sticky hypermedia journey. I think the metaphor of travel is overused when people talk about the World Wide Web, but I do think it's an apt one in this case. Not so much because I lack imagination, but because I do think that hypermedia projects, websites, CD-ROMs, hypertext web are about movement from space to space, page to page, layer to layer via the click of the mouse. And with its ability to combine text, sound, still, and moving images, hypermedia does offer a rich and imaginative terrain for artists, and especially women artists, to map the aesthetic, political, and theoretical implications of new media technologies. This tour is in no means definitive. I'm leaving out lots of projects that probably should be put in as my own personal preference, which you're going to see tonight. We'll be visiting locations produced by an unaffiliated group of women artists who I'm claiming occupy the same aesthetic territory within the growing landscape of hyperspace. My interest in their work is part of an ongoing project into feminist art production and new technology that I've engaged in over the past 5 years. And I started out looking at what women were producing in video, and then moved to what's happening in new technologies, the web, robotics. Before we begin our journey, I just want to offer a few travel tips that'll help you recognize certain signposts that we encounter along the virtual landscape. First, the projects we'll be looking at this evening go against the grain, or at least I'm claiming they go against the grain, of current trends or ways of conceptualizing technology in cyberspace. They reject the cyberpunk model that posits cyberspace as bodiless exaltation, a place of the mind where the body is obsolete. Instead of leaving their bodies behind, these artists are dragging their bodies along with them into hyperspace, sometimes almost literally, as you'll see in a bit with the case of Linda DeMette, who actually digitized her own flesh and various body parts of other women for her most recent CD-ROM, Cyber Flesh Girl Monster. I think that the result of these artists' insistence on inserting the female body into cyberspace makes for some very fleshy and messy work, as I said at the beginning. There's a lot of electronic blood and guts flowing through the spaces they create. Skin is incised and laid open. There are numerous references to surgery and medicine. And they're also grappling, quite a few of them, with real blood and gut issues like rape, drug abuse, sexual abuse, sex, love, and death. Secondly, the spaces we're about to visit are also what I would call highly performative. The artists are spinning narratives, weaving all sorts of scenarios, taking on characters, creating names. Third, some of the work you'll see tonight is aggressive, even violent. It's not a new phenomenon for women to deal with anger and rage in their artwork. And actually, just as a sort of a sidebar, Karen Finley is actually in my hometown of Washington, D.C. for the next God knows how long, trying a Supreme Court case. So, dealing with anger in her case actually went all the way to the Supreme Court. But what I'm interested in these projects on the web is there's just such a proliferation of these violent projects, and I don't know why. I mean, my question is, what is it about the medium that encourages or allows for this practice? I don't have an answer. Maybe some of you will. By the end of tonight, you can let me know. And finally, the work might be aggressive, but I think it's also extremely humorous, and it's a dark and wicked humor, and it's at the expense of men, which is okay. But there's still a certain playfulness and a sophisticated parody going on here. You want to get up the first website there? You really can't start any blood and guts tour of the web without visiting the Venus Matrix site, which is the grandmother of all cyber feminist websites. Venus Matrix is an Australian-based collective. Actually, I should say was an Australian-based collective. They're really not doing collective work anymore. That was formed in 1992 in Sydney, Australia. And according to the members of the collective, the impetus of the group is to investigate and decipher the narratives of domination and control which surround high technological culture and explore the construction of social space, identity, and sexuality in cyberspace. One of the questions that Venus Matrix addressed in their work was how to incorporate feminist language and the female body into technology. There they are, before them, the brave new girls. And how to use and subvert technology for their own means and purposes. Do you want to get the manifesto? They accomplished these goals really by aggressively subverting language. One of their first actions was to disseminate their cyber feminist manifesto for the 21st century, which is slowly coming up here. And the manifesto was broadcast on community radio and television in Australia. It was printed in academic and popular journals. It was posted on numerous listservs, and it was also a billboard, if you can imagine that. It was a 6-meter by 3-meter billboard. I have to admit, when I said this in the States, everyone asked me, how big is that? So I'm really happy to be here. So I know you guys can see it. I'll just read my favorite parts. We are the modern cunt, positive and anti-reason, unbounded, unleashed, unforgiving. We see with our cunt, we make art with our cunt. The clitoris is a direct line to the matrix. What's interesting to me about the manifesto is how aggressively it inserts the female body into the web. Their aggressive use of language and their style of appropriating and reclaiming words that are usually used to insult or demean women, and adopting these words as part of their personas, calling themselves cunts. It quickly became a characteristic of cyber-feminist work. As we go on tonight, we'll meet a whole series of techno whores and ambitious bitches and girl monsters who can trace their lineage back to this manifesto. Venus Matrix was really good at getting their message out across the web. Until last year, they would still do mass spamming of this manifesto on Usenet groups, listservs, out of the blue from nowhere. They wouldn't even participate in the list. They just would just sign up and just spam it and create a big story, because a lot of the net art listservs are run by men, and they really wouldn't know how to react to this. Do you want to go to the all-new Jen?
Yeah. Venus Matrix were the first femme noche for XX.
Ah, there you go. Were they here?
Yeah, for Isaiah. At Jordy's space. What's her name? Julia Darling? What's her name? I'm forgetting the name now.
Yes, girl.
Yeah.
Great.
What is Venus?
Most of their web activity, and most of their activity in general, whether it was on the web or off the web, was text-based. They did do a couple of installations, but those had a lot of text in them as well. They produced very few images or graphics. I mean, you saw the one at the beginning, and that's probably the most famous one. They produced this interactive installation / game called an All New Gen, and it's still available on the web. I mean, it's not really a game; it's playing with the notion of a game. It's still available at this site, the Difference Engine site, and they set out to critique video games where a male hero usually engages in battle with multiple enemies by reversing gender roles. So the hero of an All New Gen is Game Girl, who's supported in her mission by her zone girls called the DNA Sluts. And their enemies are Big Daddy Mainframe and his sidekick Circuit Boy. So if you enter, you get the rules. I mean, it's not really a game that you play. You just kind of kick through it. But, welcome to the world of All New Gen. Thank you for playing. Like I mentioned, they lay out who all the characters are. And you just through it. And then as you click through it, it's really a story as you click through it. So it's playing with the notion of a game. It's not interactive. It's really directed. And like I mentioned before, they're really not operating as a collective anymore. They've gone off and done other projects. But do you want to bring up the Techno Horror site? The next one? Part of the reason why I'm showing this site is just to show how influential Venus Matrix brand of techno-terrorism was. This is the Horror House. It's a site maintained by the UK-based artist collective Techno Horrors. And like Venus Matrix, Techno Horrors issued manifestos like this one that you see on here, which is, did you come to work or play, a techno horror, a cyber rent boy, or maybe just a John? The internet is not a place beyond the body yet. Are you here to engage in the nameless pleasure of sex information? We are promiscuous women, no better than we should be, illegitimate daughters of the myth machine. Use us, we do. Please pay at the door. The unit of exchange is a preconceived notion of femininity. So it gets a little heavy there, but it's sort of an interesting site. Any papers that they've written as students, they put up on the site. But their main area of activity was getting into moods and muds and doing performances. And again, like Venus Matrix, they kind of petered out. They're not really that active. Their site hasn't been updated in years, but they sort of jumped right on the bandwagon once Venus Matrix came out. Do you want to get to the CD-ROM? So these sites that we've looked at are kind of like, like I said, grandmother sites, and aren't very sort of interested in any sort of visual aesthetic, but they are interested in gaining information now. This is a little bit different. This is our next stop on our tour, and it's the erotic and violent realm of Australian artist Linda Dement. Linda was trained as a video artist and a photographer, and she's produced 2 CD-ROMs since 1992. She's interested in dealing with very gritty flesh and blood issues in a way which is very different from the cyberpunk take on it. This is her first CD-ROM from 1992. It's called Typhoid Mary, and it tells the story of a nightclub stripper who wants to contract typhoid and die. The piece shifts between Dement's own erotic writing concerning violence, pleasure, and death, to quotations borrowed from feminist theorists and other writers, to information called from medical journals, and finally to the montage visual landscapes you were just looking at, which include gunshot wounds, surgical images, and oddly reconstructed human body parts, which you can see. And the flesh, actually this is probably a good example. The flesh has been incised and stitched and pierced, and in parts it's decorated with Victorian jewelry. Where? Typhoid Mary is intentionally laid out without any sort of navigational grid or guidelines, which you see a lot in games or more traditional CD-ROMs. And you never really know where you're going to end up among the layers of information. And I don't think I've ever taken the same route. But you'll notice that she's primarily working with collages of still images, or what amounts to a flat two-dimensional screen. And every once in a while, you'll see, hopefully you'll see as we go through, if we come to the right spaces. There's one. This is actually one that should move. There you go. Every once in a while, you see some subtle pulsating movements within a collage. But this piece is not fully typical. It's not full of the typical zooms and movements that mark commercial CD-ROMs. And at the time when Linda created Typhoid Mary, she was specifically experimenting with working against the video game paradigm, where there's a tendency to click and move or interact. And you really don't interact with this piece. It sort of tells you. And at the time she felt, because the computer screen was flat, that she should develop an aesthetic that worked with that flatness. So there's nothing three-dimensional in this work. It also really demands a lot of patience because you expect it to do something and it doesn't necessarily. And it sort of defeats the click and move mentality that's developed on the web, where something comes up real quick and you can go to the next image and the next image, or things move all over the screen. She's demanding that users spend time with the piece and understand the narrative and explore the many layers and digest the information she's providing. Do you want to just click through it a bit before we move on to the next one?
So you can move through it by clicking.
Right.
Do you select how you're moving through it, or are you subjected to the path?
Yeah, it's completely random. Like if you click on the same spot in an image, tomorrow that you did today, it won't bring you to the same story or the same other image.
I should program that. How is it done?
Well, every time an image comes up, it's programmed differently. Yeah. I mean, it's really diverse. I mean, you have these stories, you have quotes, you have these charts as you go through. Do you want to move on to Cyberflesh Girl Monster? Cyberflesh Girl Monster is a more recent CD-ROM. I think it's a couple years old now, actually. And it's much more sophisticated than Typhoid Mary. There's lots of QuickTime movies and animations. Do you just want to hold off on just follow them around and have them move? And it covers a lot of the same territory. She's exploring themes of sexuality and medicine and also patriarchy. To create this work, Linda asked women to donate a scanned portion of their body and a fragment of voice or sound. And she then combined these fragments into a series of little monsters that are actually conglomerate bodies. So they're real conglomerate bodies.
But it's also full of references to medical.
Oh yeah. As we click through it, hopefully they'll come up. When we, like what Kat just did, when you activate a monster by clicking on it, the words attached to that body part may be seen or heard, like we're seeing now. Another monster might appear, a digital video animation might appear. It does work more on a grid, though. These are, navigation buttons as you go through. They say touch here, press here, press here. And I think, it also does demand a certain patience from the viewer. I guess you can click because there are these navigation buttons, but things come up slowly and take their own time. You kind of have to follow them if you want to sort of see the whole depth of the CD-ROM. Do you want to try this one?
Oral consumption then.
Well, here comes the really fun part. people will be able to get on and look at this at the end if they want to, right? Is that right? Or am I not making that up? Okay. It's the GIF. I really wanted to go by Jane Prophet, who's a UK artist. Her site, the Inner Organs of a Cyborg, but it's for some reason we can't access it. So I have this small animated GIF that kind of sort of gives you an idea of her work. Jane is a prolific and influential new media artist, and her work really occupies the same aesthetic territory in a lot of ways as Linda DeMett's. Hopefully they will start animating. Except she really, for a long time, she worked only on the web. The Imaginary Inner Organs of a Cyborg is a web project that lays open the flesh of a cyborg to reveal what lies beneath, so you can sort of see that there. The work is emblematic of Prophet's ongoing interest in dualism, inside-outside, human-machine, male-female, that's being generated or regenerated by current hypermedia configurations. And like I said, her work does have a lot in common with Linda DeMett's, aesthetically, if not thematically. Her work isn't as violent as Linda DeMett's, but visually there's a lot in common there. And both of them were trained as video artists, and they're both really rejecting the video model, or what I would call the video model of CD-ROM production that's common in a lot of artist and non-artist work. And by this I mean she's not trying to create work that looks like real-time video. Prophet's committed to creating a purely digital experience and aesthetic. In the Imaginary Inner Organs of a Cyborg, still images and quick-time animations and text and JavaScript programs create this really rich, dense electronic landscape that I would encourage you to look at sometime. Hopefully it'll be back up online.
What's her name?
Jane Prophet.
What's
Yeah. And she's also produced a CD-ROM development of this website called The Heart of a Cyborg. And I think that kind of opens up, just like as a sidebar, sort of opens up this interesting model of production that we're seeing more and more of on the web, where artists have the ability with new technologies to offer and produce and distribute a similar project in two different but related platforms, both as a CD-ROM and as a web page. Anyhow, it's too bad that we couldn't get there, but do you want to move to the... There. For this next project, this is a site that belongs to Ambitious Bitch, a multimedia project by Finnish digital artist Marita Luilia. And again, like I say multimedia because this specific project has had 3 developments. It's toured as an interactive installation in museums throughout Europe. There's a CD-ROM, a very expensive CD-ROM that costs $128 US. And then there's this website. So again, I mean, she's really taking advantage of what there is. Oops. Actually, we need to get the small Java window, which might be behind here. If you just pull it down. Yeah, there it is. And we're going to dive into maybe... Ambitious Bitch is a persona that Marita developed as a takeoff on Madonna's ambitious blonde character. And, I mean, as you can see, this website's really lush and slick and techno-savvy, quite a bit more than the other sites we've seen. But I think that just because it's slick, it doesn't mean that there's no content. I think content-wise, it's just as subversive and funny and humorous as the other projects. She's pretty shamelessly self-promotional. She describes this project as a new way to approach women through self-irony, randy wit, and quirky brilliance. And while I think there's some truth to this statement, I do still think that there's some subversive qualities going on here, even though it is a little bit lighter and more fun. She frames the project as an adventure into the world of women, exploring how gender, language, and power are connected and constructed through various topics like the ones that you see here: body and the art of existence, female perversion, sex or gender, erotic tales, waves of feminism. If you come down here, there's something like 8 or 9 of them, and ambitious blonde. And let's just go through. I mean, she does make fun of blondes. I don't know what that's all about there. But, and she's recently expanded her conversation on gender and sexuality with a new project entitled The Son of the Bitch, which specifically explores homophobia, and it's part of this. It's part of this site. Actually, if you pull this down again, actually the whole Netscape thing, if you pull the file down again, yeah, and click on the M, and then, well, actually, if you stay there, actually, it's right here. This is the Son of the Bitch site. And there's all sorts of quizzes that you can take when you enter in it to see if you're homophobic, to test your homophobia. Every month there's going to be a different mail that you can download to your desktop and use as a tile pattern. If you go in there, the quiz comes up. It's a very long quiz, I have to admit. All kinds of guns and bullets going through. Yeah. It really pokes fun at men, which is pretty funny. Would you like to shut this one down then and go to the women?
We're going to go back to...
Actually, if you just close the whole site up.
Okay.
It's a nice site, but man, it's really hard to get around, isn't it? There you go. This is Women with Beards, and this is another project. Has some humor. This is also another example of collective work, and it's produced by a collective of 3 Dutch artists, and I won't even try to say their names. But the artists see this site as a metaphor for a new way of looking at ambition, sex, love, and reproduction. Those are their words, not mine. But I think that the calendar is also a parody or send-up of online sites like babe.com, if you've ever been there, that offer more traditional pin-up calendars of naked women. Each month, a new bearded babe. Each month, a new bearded babe is presented, and anyone searching the web using keywords like babe or calendar could easily come to this site. Do you want to go back and get up that first image? As you can see, the choice of bearded ladies is really diverse. There's young women, there's senior citizens, but this is the first bearded lady, and she's still my favorite. This is Miss January 1997, writer Natasha Gearson, and I think what else is interesting about this site is it actually is sort of a way to promote this woman and her work. There's different things that you can click on in the site that will bring you to an excerpt from her new book. So I think that's a really interesting way that you can also promote, as well as sort of just present this parody. And other babes featured included a member of Dutch Parliament, a musician, a physicist, and a newspaper editor. And we saw the one calendar. I mean, the site was incredibly user-friendly. You could download a calendar with dates on it. You could get email announcements every month that would let you know that a new babe was up. And what's interesting is none of this was done digitally. Which is really sort of interesting to me. Women would come into the studio and work with a makeup artist to create their work, their look.
So they weren't actually wearing beards, they were added digitally?
No, they weren't added digitally. That's what I think is sort of funny about it. It was a lot of work. They actually went into the studio and posed and had beards made. I think, is she the one that's a member of Parliament? No.
Legal advice.
And she's also been giving internet training to sick children.
Do you want me to click on any
Why don't we just go through this one? Unless we did. Did we go?
No.
Yeah, this one is the newspaper editor. This is one of my favorite ones, too. I don't know any newspaper editors like this. That's great. And she's dreamt about Tommy Lee Jones. Actually, so you want to move on to the answers site? Now for something completely different. This site really, I think, brings us back full circle to Venus Matrix. Juliet Martin is really a different generation of cyber feminist artists. She was trained as a hypermedia artist. She has a Master of Fine Arts in hypermedia. And she didn't come from video or painting or theory. This is what she does. And she's also part of a movement on the web, a movement in net art that really rejects using all sorts of fancy plugins or even using Java to create net art, and instead is returning to mining basic HTML code to create their art. And I think this is still like a really nice site. It's really sort of visually rich, and she plays a lot with text and
She uses a lot of CGI too.
Yeah.
Like in other ones? Like
In other
the
ones, yeah.
randomizing of it?
Yeah. And, but again, like this is basically a text project again. And while we're clicking through it, I'll just read you some of it. I mean, it's basically a story about love, death, and a woman's relationship to her computer. And it really is filled with like a lot of blood, saliva, tears. I think if you go into that third yes, might be what I'm going to read. Yeah. Can my teeth stay white and my belly full? Ortho man, can you align my bike? Should my jaw be wired? These are questions for the trip chip to know and the computer girl to answer. A guilty sweet saliva girl wells in the pocket just between my gums and lips. She just loves it there. Maybe she will clean my teeth and align my bite. As I lick my bloody chips, I realize I soon must die in the hand of my envy. For I have loved, and blood is the shadow of my indulgence. My tendril pleasures are visible through my transparent skin. Silicon chips replace silicon implants. You can pierce me like a tender bulb of flesh, read through my skin. Cotton fills my cheeks like acid dries my mind. Bits each joy, morsel, and carved caverns of patterns. Please, cotton and wire, bring me closer to the fool I need to be, closer to the food I need to eat. Food which won't fill my arms without rotting my teeth first. Can my teeth stay white and my belly full? Yeah, sort of all over. So I want to end with this piece because, like I said, it does go full circle. And if you guys have any questions, I'd like to take questions now or comments.
I mean, Laura, is that mostly collective work, or some of it is individual work? Or
It's a mixture.
It's a mixture. But is it easier? I mean, I was just wondering is it collective or is it more like how do they live? Those people who make websites, how does somebody do an individual website? Is it like a painter? Is it like this traditional thing where you're alone with your computer and you do your work, like if you were doing a painting or you were doing a sculpture, but you're just using like another medium, but your practice is really the same kind of practice finally as being an individual artist with your medium?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not really sure what it's like here in Australia. Venus Matrix and Linda DeMent were heavily funded. I mean, Linda DeMent got lots of money to make Cyberflesh Girl Monster. She got money to go set up, her scanner and digitize Flesh at different points. I mean, Juliet is on some really cheap little server called BywayNet, and she puts up her own work and, pays her monthly bill. And she exhibits her work a lot, but she exhibits it on the net, so that she gets paid. I mean, we have her exhibiting on our site. We're not paying her, so, we don't have the money to pay right now. I think that there was a lot of collective work. I just think there was sort of this euphoria when people saw what Venus Matrix was doing and just really wanted to be part of that. And I think that it spawned a lot of collective work after that.
Do most of the collectives actually do the technical work of producing the websites themselves, or are they contracting with others to do that?
Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of the work, it's not like it's that visual or that difficult what they're
Well, like
doing.
Medea is pretty intense.
Yeah, she's a graphic artist. I'm sure she does some of it and makes decisions. I'm sure she also has people working with her and working for her too to program. But
I just wondering how, at international multimedia festivals like Medea or Ars Mechanica, how is it kind of seen, considering that a lot of that work, a lot of stuff that is being presented in those venues is kind of boys showing off
well, I mean, I know that at Documenta this past summer there was a special effort and a special lab and group for women that was sort of outside of Documenta. I'm part of a listserv called Net Time. I don't know if anyone else here is part of that. But this woman posted a translation of an article that she wrote called something, it was a bad translation in English, something like the vagina is the whole of the internet or something. I mean, it was this weird translation. And, she talked a lot about Venus Matrix. She had just seen their site and, she just talked about vaginas on the internet is what she was talking about. And it's like, it was over the summer and there was no activity on the list until she did that. And, a lot of people didn't see it as art. They saw it as something else, because there's not images, they're not moving. Just like spawned a lot of controversy. And I know that another list I'm on, Rhizome, a group of women just did a sort of like a mock award, mock award called Mr. Net Art. And what they did was they wanted sites submitted that were sort of like macho guy sites. And they looked them over, and they basically gave the award to the most macho guy site on the web. So, I think they are excluded from a lot of those conversations, and a lot of what you're talking about isn't really the sort of places necessarily that net artists go. I mean, the V2 conferences that take place in the Netherlands, Beauty in the East, which just took place in Slovenia. Those are places where net artists gather, and women are basically excluded from those gatherings. It's mostly a European, Eastern European male dominance. And of course, like in the States, I mean, I don't know what's going on here, but in the States, those events just don't exist. So.
Well, we did one last year. We're going to do another one in the fall. Just girls.
Cool.
Last time we let 2 men in, but...
So what is this, a conference or something?
No, it's for another web art festival called Made in Cyberspace. So there'll be more information on our email list once we know we have money. Money detail.
Another issue, yeah.
And someone like Linda DeMent, does she program all her own stuff, or she works?
Yeah. And she's been working on a new CD-ROM for a while. I don't know when it's going to come out. I mean, actually, last time I did this talk, people really wanted to buy her CD-ROM, and it's really funny because there's a lot of money for her to produce the CD-ROM, but there still aren't mechanisms for distribution. And if you're interested, I did contact her before I came up, and she was kind of entering into some sort of relationship with a distributor and didn't know if she could still self-distribute or had to go through them. But if you're interested, I can give out my email address, and once she clarifies it, I can let people know.
What was she selling it for?
It's something really cheap, like maybe like 30 US or 25 US, something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's typical with a lot of CD-ROMs that I've been picking up. I mean, Marita is just like a complete exception, but people are selling them for around 25, 30.
Is that the ambitious bitch one you were saying was really
Ambitious. Yeah, it's very expensive. They won't give out preview copies to the press. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, actually. I should think about it. Artists need to do that more often. Well, if that's
Do you really
it.
think it all begins with VNS Matrix?
Oh, I don't think this is anything new. I think, you can reach back in history. But I think that they were incredibly influential, and that was, they're very good at self-promotion. They're very good at getting money to get out of their country and go and speak at conferences and getting their information out. I think that there's robotic work that comes out of Australia at the same time that's in the same sort of theme. That's also very influential too, but it's not demonstrated on the web. A lot of young artists just went to their site and just got excited about what they saw.
Which has been like in here, like Nell's work precedes all this stuff. In terms
Sure.
Of hyperspace.
Oh, sure. I don't think this is anything new, and I don't think it's divorced from an art historical context either. But I think that it was distributed through the web, and people went and saw it. And again, that's what got people really excited, or young women really excited, and they wanted to mimic it and reproduce it. And often, probably often ignorant that they're not necessarily doing anything new.
Do you know the URL of Nancy Patterson?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what? Because you should show it to people because it's really funny.
I don't know if I know.
I didn't bookmark it on there.
If we go to the Cyber Times, we might be able to get from the Cyber Times archive.
Yeah.
But,
Is that, you want to do it?
we could try it.
Cybertime?
Yeah, cybertimes.com. We can see it because I know that they did an article on it.
Yeah, 'cause I was reading about it and I saw your name in there.
Yeah.
They referred to it.
Yeah, I've written about her work in the past, actually.
It made me laugh. It was great.
Yeah. She's been with that for a long time. Is there cyber? No, it has to. You have to click on Cyber Times. Maybe we can try and get it up.
After.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that we have to see while we're trying.
There's seven.
Yeah. Mom's looking at you.
We can do a search.
Why don't you try hot dog?
Try hot pot cake, Sam. What's called?
Maybe stock market skirt, but maybe Nancy Patterson would be easier to search for than stock market skirt to bring
Yeah,
up.
up to 4 million stock markets. It's 1 T, I think, or 2?
It's two.
2. Do exact, use the quote. Sorry, go on.
Just put a plus in front of the
I thought of it last week when I forgot to hit the URL.
Yeah, and it's not so friendly either. You have to enter. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
pretty much. Plus minus.
Oh, we're going to be on.
Skip James Patterson.
Yeah. Bummer.
Well, maybe we can search for it.
Yeah, it was just a thing. We don't have to go there.
Do you want to go to your site?
We could.
There it is. There it is. Is that? Oh no, it's not divorce.
Nancy's poetry lesson.
Yeah, I just thought divorce.
Obituaries.
Yeah.
Usually if you come down. This is just our organization side. And we have a web journal called Massage. And then the other side of our we're sort of operating on the same principle as the women with beards. We're hoping people will do searches for massage parlors and come here instead.
Well, people always think we're triple X, but I don't know if they find us on the web. That was all the time. Even the grant agents.
Anyhow, so, well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.